Hey everyone, welcome to Beyond the Gates. I'm Alessio, and I'm so excited to have you here. If you love Beyond the Gates, then you're in the right place. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a video. Alright, let's dive right in. When I tell people about what happened in Las Vegas that week, they think I'm exaggerating or that I'm retelling some soap opera I watched too late at night when I should have been sleeping. But I lived it. Every confusing, intoxicating, terrifying minute of it. And the truth is, I still don't know if Vegas saved me or broke me. Maybe both. It started with Dani and Andre. I wasn't even supposed to be there when they crashed onto that bed, laughing like kids who had finally broken free from their parents. But life has a funny way of pulling you into rooms you didn't mean to enter. I saw them fall back, side by side. Andre's arm brushing Dani's like it had every right to be there, and Dani not moving away. It was the kind of closeness you only get when two people have been circling each other for a long time, denying something real, until a city like Vegas, with its neon lights and heavy air of temptation, strips all the pretense away. For them, Vegas was supposed to be a distraction. A chance to shove the past few weeks into a dark corner and let the music, the drinks, the roulette wheels drown out the guilt and questions they carried like overstuffed luggage. For me, though, well, I didn't come to Vegas looking for an escape. I came looking for answers. But before I explain that, let me rewind to something Anita Dupree said that night, something that still echoes in my head. She was sitting at the bar when I heard her voice a little too loud, the way it gets when she's had one too many martinis. "We don't ask why," she said, smiling like she had just pulled a secret from the sky. "We say bye, bye, bye." The line didn't make sense to most people around her. But it made sense to Dani and Andre, and I saw the way their eyes widened when they realized exactly who Anita was speaking to. I followed their gaze and froze. Because standing right there, in the glittery mess of a Vegas lounge, were the Articulates. Yes, those Articulates. The band we used to play on loop in high school, the soundtrack of first kisses and heartbreaks, the women whose harmonies felt like gospel when life got too hard. To see them there in flesh and rhinestones was like watching ghosts climb out of a jukebox. But while Dani and Andre whispered to each other like conspirators, I couldn't stop staring at Anita. Because Anita always knew more than she let on, and I had the sickening feeling she was here not for music or nostalgia, but for something darker. Meanwhile, miles away from the chaos of the Strip, Vanessa was having her own moment. I wasn't there with her in Uptown, but later, when she told me the story, her face lit up with that half-smile she gets when she knows she's on the edge of trouble, and I can't resist jumping in anyway. Joey, her smooth-talking, too handsome for his own good boyfriend, had blindsided her with a question that didn't sound like a question at all. "You want to take me on a vacation?" Vanessa laughed when she repeated it to me later, the way she always laughed when she was covering up nerves. Because Joey didn't mean vacation in the way normal people mean it. He meant escape. He meant running from something or someone that had gotten a little too close. Vanessa agreed, of course. She always agreed when it came to Joey. He could have asked her to drive blindfolded down a mountain road, and she'd have said yes, as long as his hand was resting on her thigh. That's how they ended up in Puerto Rico, in a hotel suite that smelled like salt water and sunscreen. And that's where Joey leaned close and whispered the thing that made her stomach flip. "Take off your wedding ring." Vanessa told me she froze in that moment. Her ring, the tiny gold band she'd once sworn she would never remove, suddenly felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. She said her fingers twitched against it, that familiar circle of commitment, of loyalty to a man she no longer loved but couldn't fully leave. She looked into Joey's eyes, and he wasn't pleading, he wasn't joking. He was daring her. Would she do it for him? Would she give him that small, symbolic victory, proof that she belonged to him and not the ghost of the man waiting back home? Back in the DMV, things were unraveling just as fast. Doug, poor, tired Doug, was at Joey's casino. He wasn't there to gamble, not really. He was there to talk to Detective Marcel Malone. You ever meet someone whose very presence makes you feel like the walls are closing in? That's Marcel. He's one of those cops who doesn't need to raise his voice to scare the hell out of you. His silence says everything. Doug sat there rubbing his wedding band, the same way Vanessa had hours earlier. He said something then that made my skin crawl when I heard it later. This marriage thing is nothing but a high-stakes gamble, Doug muttered, half to himself, half to Marcel. And the odds are never in your favor. Now, Doug and Marcel in the same place at the same time? That's no accident. Nothing with Marcel is coincidence. And if Joey promised Doug safety, he didn't mean safety from him. Vegas is a city of accidents. People fall down staircases. Cars spin out on the freeway. Balconies don't have as much railing as they should. And Doug? He looked like a man waiting for gravity to finally push him over the edge. Meanwhile, in paradise, or what Vanessa thought was paradise, she woke to the sound of her phone ringing. She told me later that she almost didn't answer, that she almost let it buzz itself into silence, while Joey's arm curled tighter around her waist. But something in her gut told her to pick up. It was Detective Jacob Hawthorne calling from the police station. His voice was sharp, clipped, like every word had been carved from stone. "Vanessa," he said, "I have an important matter I need to talk to you about." She sat up in bed, heart pounding. The way Jacob emphasized need told her everything she didn't want to know. Something bad had happened, or was about to. Beside her, Joey stirred, his face tightening, his eyes flicking open with that intensity she'd seen before, the kind that meant he knew exactly what was going on but wasn't about to say it out loud. And in the background of Jacob's call, she swore she heard another voice. Marcel. Getting closer. If that doesn't tell you storm clouds were already brewing, then I don't know what will. Vanessa told me that when she heard Jacob's voice on the other end of the line, her first instinct was to hang up. Not because she didn't care. God, she cared too much, but because she could feel Joey's eyes boring into her even before she looked over at him. She didn't want him to hear Jacob's words, didn't want him to know how her body reacted to them. But she stayed on the line, clutching the phone to her ear with fingers that trembled like a frightened child. "Jacob," she whispered, glancing sideways at Joey. "What's going on?" Jacob didn't answer right away, and the silence was worse than anything he could have said. Finally, his voice came low and steady. "This isn't a conversation we should have over the phone. I need you to come down to the station. Today." Vanessa swore her heart skipped a beat. The police station? In Puerto Rico? How had Jacob even tracked her there? She tried to breathe normally, but her chest felt like it was collapsing. She turned slightly, and that's when she saw Joey sitting up in bed, his hair tousled, his expression unreadable but sharp, almost predatory. "What is it?" Joey asked, his tone deceptively casual. "Who's calling you at this hour?" She could have lied. She wanted to. But Joey had that look, the one that dared her to try. She knew better. "It's Jacob," she admitted softly, her eyes still locked on Joey's. That's when Jacob spoke again, this time with urgency. "Vanessa, listen to me carefully. Don't let anyone else hear this conversation. I'm not the only one here right now." She froze. Because in the faint crackle of the background, she could hear another voice, low, steady, almost like a growl. "Marcel." Joey tilted his head like he was trying to catch the words, but Vanessa quickly stood up, the phone pressed tighter to her ear, and walked toward the balcony. She stepped outside into the heavy Caribbean air, the sound of waves crashing faintly in the distance, her bare feet brushing the cool tile. "Jacob," she whispered, closing the sliding glass door behind her. "What's happening? Why are you calling me here?" "Because," Jacob said, "things are moving fast. Too fast. And if you don't make the right choices soon, Vanessa, you're going to find yourself caught in something you can't escape." She clutched the railing, her wedding ring pressing into her palm, as if reminding her of its existence. And that's when the irony hit her. Less than 12 hours earlier, Joey had asked her to take it off. She hadn't. Not yet. She told me later she didn't know why, whether it was loyalty, fear, or just superstition. But now that ring felt less like a promise and more like a curse. Behind her, Joey slid the glass door open. "Everything okay?" he asked, his voice soft but dangerous. Vanessa forced a smile, turning back toward him. "Yeah, everything's fine. Just Jacob being Jacob." Joey studied her for a moment, then reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face. His touch was gentle, but his eyes were not. Good, he said finally, because I wouldn't want anything ruining this trip. She nodded, but inside she was shaking, because she knew Joey wasn't talking about ruined vacations. He was talking about ruined lives. Meanwhile, back in Vegas, Dani and Andre were still wrapped in that intoxicating, reckless energy that only Vegas can give you. They'd been on that hotel bed for an hour now, not sleeping, not doing much of anything except letting the silence between them speak louder than words. Andre finally broke it. You ever think about what we're doing? He asked, his voice low, almost vulnerable. Dani stared at the ceiling, her arms spread out like she was surrendering to gravity. All the time, she admitted. But then I think, maybe that's the point of Vegas. Not to think. He laughed softly, but it wasn't a happy laugh. You and me were not built for casual distractions. We're the type that remembers everything. She turned to face him then, her eyes searching his. So, what are we doing here, Andre? The question hung in the air, heavy and unavoidable. He didn't answer right away. He just reached for her hand, lacing his fingers through hers like it was the most natural thing in the world. Dani didn't pull away. That's when Anita's laughter floated through the paper-thin hotel walls, sharp and unmistakable. Dani stiffened, recognizing the voice immediately. She's here, she whispered. Andre's brow furrowed. Who? Anita, with the articulates. Andre sat up, his body tense. You're kidding. No, Dani said, shaking her head. And if Anita's here, it's not a coincidence. The words sent a chill down Andre's spine. Because Anita Dupree was never just there. She was always moving pieces on some invisible chessboard. And the articulates showing up in Vegas wasn't nostalgia, it was strategy. Across town, Doug was unraveling fast. He sat at a small table in Joey's casino, staring at the amber liquid in his glass, swirling it like it held the answers he couldn't find anywhere else. Marcel was there, leaning against the wall, watching him the way a hawk watches a rabbit that doesn't know it's already been caught. You know, Marcel finally said, his voice calm, almost conversational. Most men don't even realize when they've already lost. They keep playing, keep betting, thinking the next hand will change everything. But the truth is, the house always wins. Doug rubbed his wedding band again, the metal biting into his skin. So, what are you saying? That I should fold? Marcel smiled faintly. I'm saying, maybe it's already too late to fold. Doug's stomach dropped. He glanced around the casino floor, the slot machines chiming, the dealers calling bets, people laughing and cheering. But in that moment, the place felt like a coffin. Because deep down, Doug knew Marcel wasn't talking about cards. He was talking about his marriage, his deals, his very life. And Doug couldn't shake the feeling that his number was already up. Back in Puerto Rico, Vanessa lay awake long after Joey had fallen asleep beside her. She stared at the ceiling fan spinning slowly above, the soft whirring sound mixing with the ocean breeze drifting through the open balcony door. Her phone rested on the nightstand, Jacob's last words still ringing in her ears. If you don't make the right choices soon, Vanessa, you're going to find yourself caught in something you can't escape. She turned her head and looked at Joey. His face was peaceful in sleep, but even in that stillness, he radiated danger. She thought about what he'd asked her earlier. Take off your wedding ring. Slowly, quietly, she lifted her hand and touched the band. For the first time since she'd slipped it on years ago, she truly considered removing it. Not because Joey wanted her to, but because she wondered if keeping it on was only pulling her deeper into a storm she couldn't survive. And somewhere, far away in Vegas, Dani, Andre, Anita, and Doug were each fighting storms of their own. Storms that were about to collide in ways none of us could have predicted. Because that's the thing about secrets, lies, and love in a place like this. They don't stay buried for long.